Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can clearly see, I haven't really bothered too much with makeup as I am finished filming this video and quickly edit it up. I will be just getting straight to bed. It is about no less than 2:42 now, so it's a couple of minutes away from being 3 AM. Yes, big surprise, another 3 AM related video, but it's Halloween season. All of the spooky vibes happen at 3 AM, except for haunted locations. Nightmare. When I woke up the next day, I immediately made my way towards the porch for any sign of an unwanted visitor. I slid the door open and paced my way around, searching for a cigarette or anything of the sort, showing myself that I wasn't crazy. I practically turned the whole area upside down, but it was showing to be a fruitless effort, as all I found was an empty porch. As I stood outside, something hit me. I had just woken up on the couch again, not my bed. Dread washed over my body as I rushed to our bedroom to find a note on the bed from Mary. Tried to say bye to you this morning, but you never came to bed. I couldn't get you to wake up after I found you on the couch. You were really knocked out. Don't stay up so late playing those video games, okay? I'll see you later today, so have a nice morning. I sat there in the bedroom, dumbfounded. So was it really just a dream? I thought to myself. I was so confused. I let the weight of my body collapse onto the bed and I fished out a book of poetry that Mary had given to me a year ago or so. I'm not a poet or anything, but some nights when I felt particularly depressed or anxious, Mary would read various poems while comforting me. I know this sounds cheesy, but having someone read me stories had a very soothing quality to it, like a caring mother reading stories to her child before bed. I will always pull out this book when I am feeling myself slipping, as it reminds me of the love that she has provided me, as the words were permanently associated with comfort and bliss. See you later today, so have a nice morning. I sat there in the bedroom, dumbfounded. So was it really just a dream? I thought to myself. I was so confused. I let the weight of my body collapse onto the bed and I fished out a book of poetry that Mary had given to me a year ago or so. I'm not a poet or anything, but some nights when I felt particularly depressed or anxious, Mary would read various poems while comforting me. I know this sounds cheesy, but having someone read me stories had a very soothing quality to it, like a caring mother reading stories to her child before bed. I will always pull out this book when I am feeling myself slipping, as it reminds me of the love that she has provided me, as the words were permanently associated with comfort and bliss. I've moved to one of my favourites, written by Verena Stockham, one that is my consistent go-to when I start feeling down. Where'd you go, self? Where are you? Are you hiding away? Or too afraid to shine through? Why don't you come around anymore? Did you get swept up in the world? My reading was halted as Mary came through the front door, her face lighting up the room as she hopped onto the bed next to me and planted a kiss in the middle of my face. I laughed as she jumped on top of me and started to tickle and pinch my sides. Even though she was up at dawn and likely had to deal with ungrateful customers at her workplace, she was still able to come through the door with no thought but making me happy. We laid on the bed and talked for a few minutes before I got up to make her some lunch. After I brought her food and set her up her favourite TV show, I decided that it was a good time to head outside to change the view of our house in something presentable. I went out to the yard a few minutes later, quickly starting to bake in the scorching hot sun, mowing the yard and removing the comical amount of overgrowth surrounding the base of the house. After trimming some bushes down and ripping out some old dead ones, I suddenly felt the distinct feeling of being watched. I don't know how to describe how it came about, but my eyes proceeded to sweeping over the surrounding area. I expected to maybe see a person nearby, watching their neighbour and waiting for an opportunity to approach, giving me a welcome to the neighbourhood. However, I was surprised when my eyes fell near the adjacent tree line to see a dog standing roughly 70 yards away at the edge of the forest nearby forest, which is a dog. The animal lover in me thought as I realised who was looking at me from a distance. I called out and whistled for it to come over, but it didn't, so much as flinch. Oh well, I thought, really thinking much of it, and turned back to my yard work, hoping to make the most of my weekend by being as productive as possible to restore my crack house of a home. I worked for a few more hours, trimming the remaining brush that infested the perimeter of the house until the sun made its way back down to the horizon. As I called it a day and fanned the front of my shirt to cool off, I glanced to the edge of the forest where I had originally seen my fairy admirer, and I was overcome with a sense of dread. There it was. This dog hadn't seemed to move a muscle since I last looked its way. It was just standing there, calm and stoic, looking right at me. An uneasy feeling gripped me, but curiosity trumped my instincts, and I started to make my way towards the cusp of the forest. Hoping to instill some sort of reaction as I got closer, I started to realize how intimidating this dog was. It was quite large, not massive or a circus attraction or anything, but probably around 100 pounds, more or less, with long sturdy legs and scruffy yet jet black hair hanging off of an athletic frame. It almost looked like a wolf, but just not quite enough to distinguish as it's such. The best way I can describe it is if you mixed an Irish wolfhound and a full-blooded wolf that came out all black. I got to within 50 feet of it when I started to feel the sense of dread intensify. I didn't know why I felt this at the time, but as the details of its appearance became more clear, I saw that it was dirty, its hair appearing scraggly and unkempt, while it was already a big dog. While it was already a big dog, it seemed to carry a presence that was larger than life. It sat there, not fazed by my advances, sitting so still that it seemed to be made of stone. The sun was all but completely set by this point, and it was almost as if some outside force stopped me dead in my tracks. I stared at it and it stared right back at me. Its eyes were unlike anything I'd ever seen. They glowed an electric, vibrant yellow, and I could feel them cut deep. I was frozen. I continued to stare into its eyes, filling me with feelings of misery and hatred. I don't know how else to describe it. All I could think was that there was an intelligence that it possessed that was far outside the norm. It looked at me as if it knew who I was. It knew all of my deepest dreams and fears and proceeded to cast a cloud of resentment over them. As it stood there, rigid and unblinking, I noticed that the sun was fully set and night had arrived. Breaking the trance I was in, I began to back away. I kept my eyes locked on it as I did so in case it decided to go on the offensive, being that I may have been encroaching on its territory. Once I got some good distance on it and approached the house, I turned around and made my way to the front door. I looked back before grabbing the doorknob, but at this point it was too dark to make out its figure. Must have went back to its lair. To myself with a chuckle to laugh off my creepy little experience. Walking back into the house, I was immediately greeted by Mary with a great deal of worry in her face and tone. "Where have you been? I was really starting to get worried." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I was just outside doing some work in the yard." She looked at me with a puzzled look on her face. "How could you have been doing that? Please just tell me what's up." I wasn't sure what she was talking about. I pulled out my phone only to be dumbstruck at the time read 11:35 p.m. "How is that possible?" I muttered under my breath. The sun had only just went down before I made my way back to the house. Then the sight of the dog's gaze flashed in my mind and I felt my body twinge with discomfort. "I don't know what you were doing or something is wrong, but please be honest with me if there is something on your mind," he said to me while placing a soft hand back of my neck. "I'm okay," I told her, placing my hand on hers. "Just went on a little stroll to check out the area and clear my head." I felt awful telling a lie right to Mary's face like this. I seriously didn't know what else to tell her. I was as worried as she was, but I didn't want her to think I was crazy. We quickly moved on and proceeded to take advantage of our weekend. Not having anything to do the next day, we stayed up late watching Studio Ghibli movies and drinking wine together. Once 3 a.m. rolled around, we decided it was time to turn in, not wanting our sleep schedule to get too out of whack. That night I recall feeling very restless. Despite the generous amount of wine I had engorged myself with, I tossed around in bed for what felt like forever. Finally managed to fall asleep. I experienced a dream that was uncomfortably vivid. It started with me struggling to pick myself up off the ground to see I was on a painfully long and dark stretch of road. I know this sounds weird, but I remember feeling extremely cold. I could see my breath and feel the ends of my fingers numbing quickly. Putting my hands to my mouth to breathe in warmth, my eyes ran along the center of the road ahead of me. There weren't any houses nearby to discern that I was in a residential area, nor any visible trees that may have indicated that I was along a back road highway. However, but I did see were two faint lights off in the distance, so far out that I almost had mistaken them as fireflies. If the road had not been so barren and the surrounding area seemed non-existent, there is no way I would have even noticed them. I rubbed my hands together, letting the friction ease my freezing palms and I stared at the distant glow. I tried to make something out of them, but it was too difficult to tell exactly how far away they were since I had nothing to scale it with. It could have been a few hundred feet away or even a few miles for all I could tell. I didn't know what all this meant or what was going on, but I felt a deep longing to reach these lights. Whether to find my way out of this dense shadow, or maybe to find that it was a warm house in which I could shelter myself from the elements. I took my first step and I stopped. Once my foot planted, I felt a deep, raspy growl emanate from the darkness that lay behind me. I snapped my head back with the instinct executed by an unlucky prey, and I felt the temperature drop even further. I focused my vision with great effort, but I couldn't seem to see anything behind me from which this growl may have come from. Nothing but shifting, oily blackness sat behind me, contorting as it mocked my efforts to discover what it held. I wanted to speak, but all I could do was let my mouth fall open to let a meek whimper slide out. This was a sound I didn't recognize at first, but it was one that must have been pulled out of me by whatever presence was lingering in the dark. I stood there for what felt like hours, stuck in place while the frigid air crushed my body. The suspense was beginning to gnaw at me as I internally begged for something to happen, as the cold air all but pulverized me to a speck of dust. I sat there, waiting. Suddenly, I felt an abrupt shift and heard the accelerating mass of a large animal begin crashing its way toward me. I immediately turned back towards the two lights in the distance, offering themselves as my own sanctuary, and I ran. I ran faster and harder than I ever had, feeling my ankles and knees absorb each smack of my feet hitting the dense concrete below me. This wasn't the stereotypical dream where no matter how fast you ran, you couldn't move more than the speed of a slug. No, I could run well, exceptionally well actually. I felt myself flying through the air with a speed I didn't know I possessed. Those lights never seemed to get any closer. I was certain that at any moment I was going to be a meal for whatever trailed me. Every time I looked back, I saw nothing but darkness keeping its pace with me. I thought that surely I would eventually reach my safe haven that sat ahead, but it felt as if I was running into oblivion. I dragged on and on as I made my seemingly futile dash, but I dared not stop in fear of what would present itself if I did. I had probably ran for miles, but somehow I never grew tired. My pace never slowed and my pursuit never seemed to stray. I almost wanted to just stop, put an end to this horror, but the lights ahead were my only thing keeping me from giving up. But as minutes seemed to turn into hours, I looked closely at these lights and noticed that they seemed to be further away from where they started. I didn't want to see it, but the glow was slowly fading, even though at this point I was certain I was dreaming. I panicked as the snapping and snarling coming from behind me was beginning to close the distance between us. I could hear the excitement in this beast panting as it inched closer and closer, and I felt the primal growls reverberate inside of my body. No matter how much I ran, those lights would just not find me. As the last flicker in the view went out, I felt myself collapse mid-stride, but not hitting the ground. It felt as though I had fallen through a hole in the earth, like I had run straight off a cliff and I fell through what appeared to be the ceiling of my bedroom. I felt my feet break through the roof and I crashed onto my bed to be brought awake at last. I sat up sharply in bed, being met with an intense chill despite being in a house with no AC in the middle of the summer. Laying back then, I played the dream over again in my mind. I had never felt such fear in a dream. And stranger was, I don't ever recall feeling any sort of physical sensation in any dream before, let alone having the temperature of one carrying on into my conscious state. As my body woke up a little more and my mind came to, I was greeted by the smell of bacon and pancakes filling the house, which calmed me down a bit at first. But as I stood up, my legs backward and I nearly fell back onto my bed. This dream had felt real, but there was no way my legs could be worn out from it. Maybe they're just sore from working outside all day. I reassured myself. I picked myself up and I stayed into the kitchen to find Mary happily making breakfast while playing some relaxing music. Okay, I'm gonna stop this story there because it seems like it could go on for a few years longer. This is a freaking long story, so I'm definitely going to conclude it right there. It doesn't really matter where I was last at, but I did just read this forum off of Creepypasta. It was called A Nightmare. It is now 3:26. I am fading out. So thank you all for listening so far. If you managed to keep up with me, I barely managed to keep up with myself. Definitely a few technical words in there, but you know, you learn something new every single day. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I'm going to edit now and then go to bed. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all for my tomorrow's video where I'll be doing another reaction video. Adios!